Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Return to the Realm, a rereaders podcast for the Realm of the Elderlings series by Rob and Hobb. I'm Kayiu, and here with me, as always, are Alex and Leah. And today we're going to be covering chapters 9 through 13 of Ship of Destiny. We cover a lot of ground. Paragon gets boarded. Paragon does a bunch of murder. Dacia's dead, and now she's a dragon. Big Town is falling apart, and that's just a small sampling of what's happening in this section. So, ground to cover. Also, I almost said a spoiler in there. So, just a reminder, we're a Readers podcast. We cover all 16 books in the series, not just this trilogy, not just this book. So if you haven't read them, go and do that before listening. Otherwise, start off with Chapter 9, Battle. So, the Paragon and its crew have an encounter with one of Kenneth's, I guess, I don't know what you'd call them, subordinate ships. Just let the crew free on. And despite being hella disorganized, they end up winning the battle just by virtue of, essentially having the high ground and having a live ship. The chapter ends with them capturing one of the slaves who was on Vivacia, and then trying to get him to talk and give them information about Kenneth. Except when he does, Paragon gets angry and does a murder.
Paragon does a murder. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't he he basically
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying he does a full on Olympic event long throw to send him to into the sea.
Well, first he gives the guy shaken baby syndrome, and then he flings him out. It's all
he gives him SBS.
Yes.
My favorite Olympic event.
Yeah.
Syndrome. That first battle is such a shit show. I forgot how much of a shit show.
They're lucky that they survived, honestly.
Yes.
I feel like if the other crew was more competent, they would have been screwed.
Did they have any losses? Did anyone die?
I don't think so.
It wasn't mentioned.
Which is insane.
Or it was so long ago that I forgot.
My note is that poor Clef has to grow up so fast. So I know Clef sees...
Clef kills someone.
Yeah, Clef has to kill somebody, right.
Poor freaking kid.
I know, I feel really bad for them. But I think the other team, it's an intense fight, but I don't recall that they lose anybody, from Paragon's crew.
Mm-hmm. Right. He does get blood on him, but it's all from,
the
Kenneth's
other pirates. Yeah. Yep.
I think that I get why Brashen had Jack handing out the weapons, but I feel like she would have been more effective just knocking heads together.
Yeah, I would think that Brashen would want someone more like Amber handing out weapons that's not as inclined to fight or as good at fighting. It seemed like they weren't utilizing Jack to her full capacity.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like maybe the people, the rest of the crew would have been less likely to, fight against whose weapons were given to them if it was someone that can, knock them around, which is Jack. Because I feel like they would have just grabbed whatever they wanted if it was Amber. And she needed to be up with Paragon to make sure that, she decides when he gets his weapon and tries to keep him as calm as possible. Because I feel like they all think that she is the Paragon Whisperer, but honestly, I feel like it's Althea. Throughout this whole section that we had to read, I feel like Althea is the most in tune with Paragon, his feelings, and just openly sharing hers with him. And I think that's because she grew up on a live ship. So it's a natural thing for her. But for everyone else, they don't really get it.
I agree that Althea is probably the most in tune with his emotions in terms of like tapping into him and actually feeling what he feels. But I think Amber is the best in terms of getting through to him with words.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, the stuff Amber says makes him think and sticks with him more than anything Althea or Brashen says to them, but then their feelings make him think or, like, affect him. Both of them just aren't very good at verbalizing.
Yeah. Yes. In all aspects of their life, not just with the live ship.
Yes.
Well, Amber's entire thing is just communicating through words. Plus, it's with Fitz. It got something special going on with Fitz, but otherwise, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, you were mentioning that it's Amber's job to decide when Paragon gets his weapon, and the reason that's such a contentious thing is because of the elephant in the room, which is Lavoy, that guy. Who's basically been goading Paragon to bloodthirst and murder and becoming more piratey.
Really fucking sucks.
Yeah. I don't think that, like, we realized how dangerous he was on the ship until this battle.
Because it's been a while since I read this chapter, but don't him and his, like, ex-slave friends not even do anything. They just, like, hang back, and let everybody else fight.
Yeah, and they, like, huddle around Lavoy, like, protecting him like he's the captain. Making sure that nothing happens to him.
Big yikes.
Yeah. The whole thing is gross.
Yeah, and, like, the worst part is Lavoy is, like, not particularly subtle.
No.
Everyone's just, like, throwing their hands up like, oh, there's nothing we can do about him. Honestly, it's like, he feels like it connects to, like, the bigger themes of the series, but also, like, frustrating. Amber has a line where it's like, it is in my experience that when a man in command of other men starts to go rotten, it is best to expel him as soon as possible. Which I think, applies to, like, so many characters in this series. Like, so many. Also, I really like that line because lots of lines where, like, I think we talked about this last time, maybe. I'm not sure. But, like, it feels like one of those lines where it's like, there doesn't need to be additional context behind it, but we know that Amber feels this way because of Regal and how he, like, slowly crept his way into power. So, like, if you read the first series and have made the connection, it's like, oh, this isn't just a throwaway prophetic line. It's like something that comes from her experience. Yeah.
That did not click for me, but that's super obvious.
Okay, one thing I'm confused about is, did Egrat die aboard Paragon? Like, where did he die? Do we remember how any of that happened?
No, but I know we find out. Like, later on in this book.
No recollection. I feel like Egrat, I was, like, really curious about him and his story because they all mentioned it and stuff. And then, like, when I learned it, it just, like, I completely forgot the whole thing after my first read. But
Paragon might kill him.
What?
I'm thinking maybe Paragon kills him.
I hope so. Because I was thinking, like, if Egrat does die in this, like, on Paragon or, like, goes into Paragon and stuff, then Kenneth really is fated to have the same destiny as him. But also the way that Paragon talks in this chapter with, like, the ruthlessness and, like, just him being a scary, like, alpha male type feels very like Egrat talking through Paragon.
Yeah, I think either Paragon or Kenneth himself kill Egrat.
I could see Paragon doing it to save Kenneth.
I don't remember either, and I got the same vibe where it's like, all the other times where even if he has, like, different personalities, you can sort of track them to like maybe this came from this generation of Bloodluck or like whatever. And the way he's acting in this chapter is just like so far out of the norm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like it though, in the sense of like I don't like that he's like that, but I like that like I think that in maybe any other series there would have been the sense of like on the seas and Paragon is good now. But I feel like Hobb really likes to take her time and like work through troubled characters.
Yeah.
Really, like she really gives the space for it to be like, yeah, no, change doesn't happen overnight, and people still sometimes will carry like scars of what they've been through, and I think Paragon is like the most literal example of that, where it's like, yeah, you know, I still have all of this blood in me, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, but it is nice to see that there are more than just like the dragons and the scared little like Kennet inside of him. But also, it like I don't think that I would like I would be curious to see, but I don't think I would want to see how Paragon would act if Lavoy had continued the way he was and like kept goading it on. Like I wonder if Paragon even would realize how much he was changing. Because I feel like he wouldn't like the changes that were happening to him, but he wouldn't be able to see them either. Because like Amber wouldn't be able to get through to him anymore, and he wouldn't like self-reflect or anything.
And it's like it's and part of it isn't even like changing, right? It's just like it's almost like he's a planet and it's like, okay, we're revolving and this is like the face that's showing now. And yeah, I agree. We have anything else about this chapter?
I don't. I think I said a lot of my notes from this chapter and like our note document in the last episode, like throughout other chapters. So
usually how it ends up happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all over the place.
I think my last one is just Brashen and Althea need to get their communication together because it is so bad right now.
Oh, it's so bad. And she is so quick to just assume the absolute worst in him.
Yeah.
Like it honestly is kind of annoying.
Also, it's annoying like when you're reading it because we have like an omniscient view and we're like, that's not what he fucking meant, Althea. But also it's like you get it because like she sort of like she's had people doubting her for lots of her life outside of like her father. She doubts herself and she's like, and like there's like the later part where Brashen's basically like, you need to see yourself reflected in someone else to like know that you are who you think you are in the best of times, sort of thing. And I think that Althea would never admit that to herself. I think she feels the same way, right? Like it's not that like it's sort of just like I trusted you to trust me, and and this doesn't feel like that. Even if it's not like correct, like he does trust her. He just wants her to be safe. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm writing a similar conflict in a story I'm writing right now, and I was having a lot of trouble with like nailing down like those feelings because it's so hard because it's like it's one of those things where like no one is in the wrong, but you want everyone's emotions to still feel like understandable. Like, you want like the hurt and stuff, and it's hard to like balance that line without it like tipping over. And so like I had that running in my mind like since I was writing that last night, and I came to I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is a delight. You know what I mean. Indeed.
I feel like the way Althea reacts is definitely more because of her insecurities and not because of what Brashen said. Because I don't think that at all, like if she was secure and confident in her like abilities to fight and take care of herself and everything like that, I don't think that him saying like go somewhere else and be safe would have affected her as much as it did. Because he wasn't even telling her to like hide underneath. He was just telling her to like get out of the way and stay safe. And obviously she's not strong enough to pull the grapple out when men are climbing up it. So like why not let Brashen do it? Because he's physically stronger than you. Like that's not something you can change.
It's like it's not saying like get out of the battle. It's saying get out of the literal front lines.
Yes.
Mhm.
There are other things you could be doing that is just as useful and just as important.
Yep.
It's an interesting angle where it's like Althea is sort of there's a little bit of like she's comparing herself to Jack and she in these chapters, and it's like I feel like if she looked at what's happened, like Brashen assigned Jack to like hand out the weapons, dog. He's like you're there in the battle. Like this is the moment to make that comparison and be like, okay, like you're doing something. Like I don't know. Not to like say like Jack isn't doing anything, but like coming back around to what he said, we felt like Jack definitely feels like more of a warrior, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll be coming back to that conflict later on in this section. But for now, moving on to a different live ship with chapter 10 truces. Or no, actually wait. Is there live ship stuff in this? Never mind. That's the next chapter.
Yeah.
Chapter is back to Bingtown. Oops. In this chapter, we're back to Cyrilla and Veronica's perspective. It looks we get the information that like Cyrilla's like Devad wasn't actually a bad guy. We're still going to be staying here though. Don't worry about it. Veronica overhears a conversation between Roadkern and Cyrilla where he's like, the satrap is dead. The Vestrits are traitors. You gotta go grab them. And Veronica is like, oh, I am in danger. I'm going to run. And Cyrilla is just sort of trying to deal with standing up to Road. Yeah.
I was proud of Cyrilla in this chapter because it really feels like a turning point for her. Like she's starting to acknowledge the reason and like the things that Ronica says and starting to respect her instead of just being like, oh, she doesn't directly agree with me, so she's immediately a threat. And she's even tries to like warn. She knows Veronica's like eavesdropping, so she tries to say something to like get a warning to her because she knows she can't stand up to Road enough to like protect her because she's too afraid. So she's like trying to subtly warn her. It's like she's taking baby steps forward in this chapter.
I think that she is like slowly coming back to reason and stopping thinking so much with just her fear. And I think that also the reason that she sees like Veronica as less of a threat now is because she has secured her like physical security and like safety. Because Veronica's not trying to take Devad's estate away from her anymore. So she feels a little bit like she can breathe and like Veronica's not her enemy anymore. Because I feel like that was the only part that really would have made Cyrilla start thinking of Veronica as like, this girl is against me because she was just wanting justice for Devad. She wasn't even trying to get his estate away from her, I'm pretty sure. But I feel like now that she's got that safety, she can look at Veronica a little bit more objectively.
Yeah, and a moment I really liked from this thing is like Cyrilla like sees like Veronica's shadow or whatever, and like knowing that there's someone observing there, sort of like she almost like steps out of herself into Veronica's perspective, and that lets her like have that moment of courage. And I think that's really cool. Like it's a just from both a writing perspective and like a character perspective is like it's obviously hard for Cyrilla to like this whole chapter is just like different ways of her like there's like 12 different descriptions of her feeling like trapped by Cairn, and so like having someone else as an outlet to stand up for herself, and it shows that even if she wasn't receptive to Veronica's words earlier, like retain them. Because the section ends with her like repeating one of Veronica said. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, also, thing like Road Kern is like, what will you do? Remain here in Bingtown to live in social isolation among a people who will never completely accept you? And I mean, yes, but they do end up accepting her, and she becomes like a valued member of their society. And it's sort of like, I think it's one of those things where it really shows how, like, there's like lots of explicit ways that Karen doesn't understand Bingtown, but this is like a more subtle one where it's like the whole idea of Bingtown is built on accepting outcasts and outsiders. So it, like they were they were originally the Australia of like the realm, the Elderlings world. So like they know all about that.
Yeah. I feel like the way that Cirilla starts thinking about Road in this chapter definitely mirrors the way that I was thinking about him too, because she says multiple times that he's like a child. One of the times she was like, it was a child's logic, too simplistic to be real. Make it all go back to the way it was before he proposed. Could he not see that history was not a cup of tea to be poured back into a pot? And then later, when he's like, oh, well, like, I think he's like talking about like forcing the slaves out or like just forcing some people to do what he wants and he like has like sway over things. She was like, he was a large boy spouting violent nonsense. She'd been a fool to ever rely on him for anything. And I'm like, yes, finally she's coming to her senses and I very much appreciate it. Also, it's happening so much quicker than I expected it to.
Yep.
I mean, it's still gonna take a while, right? Like she's still like scared shitless of him in this chapter, but like yeah, it's happening fast, but in a way that feels gradual, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also like her rejecting his proposal like of marriage was definitely a very big step in like standing up to him too. Because I feel like if she was really, really scared, she probably would have just said yes and been like, okay, now I have to deal with how to get out of this proposal. But instead, she's like, I'm not even going to start this in the first place.
Right.
For sure. The last note I had for like that part is the rest of it was like super horrible, but I thought it was really funny when both of them were like, yeah, so they saw it, the dragon's back, and both of them like, what the fuck does that mean? What is the dragon? Is that like a tree or something? I guess it's just a tree in the rain wilds. And like, because like they didn't have time to explain it. They're like, yeah, it's a dragon. They'll get what that means. There's only one thing that dragon can mean.
Right. My next note was about when like Ronica and Rach go to where the Three Ships people live and meet with like, I don't remember what that one guy's name is.
Sparse.
Yeah, Sparse Kelter. They go to meet with him and like his daughter Ekke opens the door and she says something about Greg. And like getting a note to him, and I was like, okay, my new ship is Grag and Ekke. Like,
well, also later in this section, like in
yeah,
the last chapter with C, he stands up for her, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like of course the Three Ships people will have to have a say, and like you can own your own land as a woman, blah blah blah." And Kefri is like, "Oh, I wonder if that was like pre-planned. Like, did they rehearse this?" And now I'm thinking, did they? But I definitely like. I did start shipping them and I feel like they do get together at the end because I feel like I remember him getting with like a Three Ships girl or something like that.
I remember a happy ending for Greg. I just don't remember what it entails, and I hope it entails Ekke.
Yeah, I think that Althea
too, because I feel like Ekke doesn't deserve like the Grag who is pining over Althea. That Grag.
Yes.
Well, I
The
think
good parts
that
of Grag,
Althea
because good parts of Grag are great.
I think that Althea laid the bricks for him to change fully and accept a strong woman, and Eke is like a very strong, like, I'm an independent woman too. And his discussions with Althea before got him thinking about it. And then she just kind of solidified it. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is totally fine.
Well, I think that Greg is a person that if you explain things to him, he would think about them a different way or like hear you out. But Althea is so bristly that she will never explain something to someone. She'll just get pissed off and like be like, you're not right for me, and then leave.
Yeah.
So they aren't like they could have probably made it work, but they aren't super well matched in that regard.
I just feel like Althea would have had to sacrifice so much of herself because instead of like talking it through, like you said, she would just get angry, but she would bottle it up. Like she wouldn't even get mad at him because she'd be like, oh, this is the proper way. But with Brashen, she like gets mad at him and he knows, and then she's like, okay, just like spit it out, like say what you need to say and let's be done with it. And then she like feels comfortable doing that. But I don't think she would ever feel comfortable doing that with Greg.
Right.
I do think that Althea did explain her issues to Greg. I think it's more that, like, ironically, I think it's something that both Althea and Greg have in common, which is that I think that they take some time to like internalize what other people say. Like they hear it, but they don't understand it until after a little bit. And I think that's sort of what happened, where it's like Althea laid it out for Greg, he just didn't come around soon enough for Althea, basically. They couldn't like, they were working off different pages. Get what?
Yeah. They couldn't get their shit together.
I think also that started him thinking, and then like seeing the way probably his family handled everything that was going down in Bingtown after that, like getting raided and everything like that, helped turn his view from like women are these things, vulnerable people who need to be protected, to women can hold their own while we're out like raiding the Chalcedians and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, is he the one who says like, you know, Bigtown traders have some of the strongest women and the Vestrates are like up there or something?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was him or someone else who said that, but I remember there being something about that.
I thought it was him, but I could be wrong.
I don't remember that, but it sounds like something he would say.
Veronica and Raish in this chapter. Okay, Raish is a better person than I ever would be, because like, if I was standing there next to her with Veronica on the run and we're looking down a ravine and Veronica's like, you can just go now if you want to, you don't have to be involved in this, I would have been like, see ya, peace, goodbye. Like, I know they're friends, but also like, Veronica is not at her best at all the time, and also like the fact that she's still like missing Devad or whatever. Like, I don't know. I feel like if I was Raish, I would have dipped ages ago.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, she's in too deep. Like, you just gotta stick it through. And also, like, she could go to the tattooed people, but I feel like maybe Rach thinks that she has a better chance of, like, standing up for and, like, being the voice for the tattooed if she sticks with Ronica, because she's a traitor. And if she can get a Bingtown traitor to listen and agree with her points, then she can do more good than just like running away and being safe somewhere else, but also like not being safe once Bingtown restores itself.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
that's
that's
a very practical angle. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, God, she's putting up like with a lot more shit than I feel like, you know, like I would be so much more angry if I was Raish, but I guess like she's just a better person than me. Is what it comes down to.
Well, I feel like she has her moments, but yeah, I would be much more snippy with Ronica than Rach ever was.
Oh, Davad's dead? Oh, like my son? Yeah, that sucks.
Yep.
Bummer.
Must really suck.
Yup.
I think my last note is, while we're talking about Ronica, she has a line here where she's saying, it left Ronica feeling oddly isolated, as if the rules of the world had shifted subtly and left her behind. It's like, yeah, dude, catch up. But also, I think that's like sort of a cosmic good sign for the Fool, right? Like the idea that like the moral compass of the universe is shifting in a better direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like also that's probably how a lot of older people feel when like the younger generation is standing up for things and making changes in society. Like the old people don't really like get it.
And it's interesting because Rode talks about that, right? He says something like, he says like the old people, yeah, he basically is just like, old people don't get it. The new young traders are where it's at. We're gonna make action. Of course, his way is entirely wrong, but like I think you're right. He has like the principle, right?
Yeah, he's definitely the like negative extremist side for sure.
Mm-hmm. Like it does end up being the younger generation that makes things happen, like Wintrow, Althea, Malta.
Yeah, but they make things happen in the world in general. I feel like Ronica's kind of one of the ones that makes things. Well, Selden makes the biggest change in Bingtown in this section where he like starts telling everyone about the dragon and what happened in like Frengong, the Elderling city.
Yeah, and it's sort of like the youngsters don't care about the rules and the sense of propriety, and that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, I agree with what you're saying about Ronica, where it's like Veronica is an example that you still need people with like experience and understanding of the systems to come around and provide that change to happen.
Yeah, it's not just a young people fighting against old and like traditions. It should be the older people realizing that the way that they were living isn't the best way to continue forward and helping the younger generation make those changes.
I mean, that's kind of what's also happening with the dragons and the serpents. A little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Okay. Do we have anything else for this section?
No.
I don't.
Okay. Let's move on to chapter 11, Bodies and Souls. This is just Bolt starts running the chapter. She really just takes out each of her key opponents one by one and is now essentially has perfect control of what used to be Kenneth and Vivacious ship.
Yeah.
As much as Bolt is a bitch, I kind of like some of her philosophy.
I agree. I
She's
start coming
like-
around and like, shit.
I know. She's making friends with Etta, and she says, no female should wait on a male's command for what is our business. And I'm like, that is kind of fitting considering the like political situation in America at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bolt is honestly really cool. It's just it's unfortunate that she's like manipulative because like
Yeah.
honestly, I think that if I could trust that she like that everything she said was like 100% like what she felt and was kosher, like not related to this line, but I mean just like in general, I think I would really like her even if she was like a dick. But like seeing in this chapter how she just sort of like says things to get Ed on her side, it's like, I want to like you, dude. I really do, but like you're hurting my friends.
I feel like because she's so anti-Wintrow, I can't be like full on board with her. I just, like, she should be talking to Wintrow and trying to get him to see her side of things and, like, be friends with Wintrow instead of being like, oh, don't you want to go back to your monastery? And him being like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's like, she's aware that he's dangerous to her, basically. He's the only one who doesn't end up drinking the Kool-Aid by the end of the chapter.
Well, and he had and has that physical, like, familial connection with Vivacia, and I think that's something that keeps Vivacia strong and still within Bolt, and that's another reason that she wants to get rid of him, because without Wintrow on the ship, Vivacia probably wouldn't, like, be there either.
It's weird because it's like, wait, why does she want him to have Etta to have Kenneth's child? I didn't get that.
That's
I think because I guess I was gonna say
first I was
because
thinking like
they don't need Wintrow on the ship, but maybe like if a baby's born on the ship, it has a stronger connection or something, so she doesn't need Wintrow. I don't know.
that was my thought at first, because because I was just thinking like Etta baby, no need Wintrow, and it's like, wait, no, Kenneth's plan involved Wintrow in that equation, but yeah,
right, yeah, I don't know. Maybe she thinks that will get rid of like Kenneth wanting to be controlling her, and then she can do whatever she wants.
I feel like she kind of can do whatever she wants anyways. Like, I don't see Kenneth
that's true.
ever controlling Bolt. Like, there's no way. And I feel like he kind of knows that. He's like, I need to tiptoe carefully around this. But the thing I noticed was that I feel like the Charm and Bolt are, like, kind of in cahoots together, because the Charm was the one who, like, was the Charm the one who talked about the baby, or did Kenneth and he just assumed that she was okay with, like, having Wintrow's baby?
Charm did it, and Bolt did it, and Kenneth did it.
So I feel like it's a dragon thing or something. I don't even know, but it was like weird that Bolt and the Charm both seem like they're on the same agenda, even though I don't think that they communicate.
I think
they have
do.
like a skill communication thing.
Yeah.
We know that like the Charm could talk to Vivacia, but Vivacia just sort of like ignored it. But if Bolt let the Charm in for some reason,
well, because she knows the Charm is like part of a dragon, so I'm sure she wants to like connect with her kin.
I'm trying so hard to understand what the Charm's deal is, dog. I'm trying so hard.
Me too, and I do not get it.
I feel like I didn't pay a lot of attention to the Charm on my first read, other than like, okay, this thing is here to like keep Kenneth safe and keep him alive and all of that stuff. So I wonder if there are more subtle things that we'll pick up that will give us better clues into what's going on with it later on in the book, or if we're just going to be like, yep, the Charm's just a charm and we're so confused by the end.
It ends up with Etta, like hanging out and encouraging Etta. So like I don't know what the deal is there. It's because it seems to favor Etta, and I don't know why.
I don't either.
One of these days, I'm gonna make a Reddit post about this and be like, please, someone explain.
Yeah. If we get to the end and we're still confused by it.
Yeah. I'm just proud of Wintrow. I have to say this. I'm very proud of him for being smart and catching on to the fact that Bolt wants him off the ship instead of being lured back into his, like, failed dream of being a priest and going to the monastery. Like, I'm very proud of him for that. He's becoming a real smart boy now.
So much.
That also triggered me thinking about how I feel like this whole book is the Vestrites leaving their like dreams and moving into a new one and like accepting their destiny and like what they're supposed to be doing, because like Wintrow ditches his like daydream of being a priest and going to the monastery for his like destiny on Vivacia, and then Althea ditches her dream of being captain of Vivacia for like life aboard Paragon and with Brashen. Ronica realizes that her dream of Bingtown going back to the way it was is never going to happen. And so she moves with like the younger generation to like forge a new order for the city. And then Malta leaves behind her like dreams and like her daydreams of being this like socialite in Bingtown, flirting with all the men and like having Serwyn be her husband for like her true love, ruling the Rainwilds as like one of the first Elderlings.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the theme is just like what you need and not what you wanted.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like they all realize that this is what they want once they let go of the dreams that don't really fit them anymore. Like once they realize the dreams they had don't fit, they understand that they actually want what their destiny is.
Like they're happy about it, but it's just sort of like they have like the goal, and then it's only when they get diverted into a different path and they're like, oh, actually, I like it here better or the same. Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of destiny, I was writing out the chapter titles for the rest of the book, just so I don't have to like go through the book to find it later. And chapter 33 is labeled Ship of Destiny. And I was starting to think like, which ship would that be? Like, because I feel like we think of Ship of Magic, like the title being Vivacia, and then Mad Ship is definitely Paragon. But I was like, what would Ship of Destiny be? And I started thinking that it's probably both of them, like Paragon and Vivacia, because both of them have such a strong like tie. And like both Althea and Kenneth think that Vivacia is their ship of destiny, but Paragon is actually both of theirs. And Wintrow's like, oh, I'm not about the ships. But Vivacia is his like ship of destiny.
Yeah.
I wish I had more to say about that, but I just agree.
It fits, yeah.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I feel like there's nothing to like dig into.
I think it makes sense because like it's sort of like it I think it's easier to assume that Paragon is a ship of destiny because he's the one who like is talking about it and is like, we're going to our destiny, we're going to meet Kenneth, and both him and Kenneth are such like destiny freaks. But it makes sense that Vivacia is also included in there because of the importance to all of the other characters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else here?
I have 2 more things about Bolt and 1 thing about Kenneth. So I'll talk about Bolt first. I just think that she is really freaking bold to say to Kenneth, like, yeah, I can command the serpents to do whatever you want. Like, she has a right to do that in the first place. And it's not like her job to help them up the river to transform. Like, she's rude and she's annoying and she's selfish as fuck. And she clearly doesn't care about continuing her species. I feel like she thinks it's a lost cause because she's dead and there's nothing that she can do to bring herself back. So why should she help these other people who are living become dragons? Like, she just doesn't care about her species at all because it doesn't apply to her. And that really irritated the crap out of me.
Yeah, I think on a first read I sort of lumped all the dragons together as like, oh yeah, these guys are just kind of selfish, arrogant assholes. But on a reread, it's like you really get to see like Tintaglia fighting and clawing and like doing everything she can to bring the species back. And you know, Bolt is like, it's for the me show. It's all about me, 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 me. It's like, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, she sucks. Like,
She's
she's
just
not
like
a
the
good
best
dragon.
dragon by far. I'm glad we
Yeah.
chose Tentaglia as like our icon.
Yeah.
Same.
Yep.
She's definitely the best. My last one is like Kenneth and Bolt like Loki assaulted Wintrow by healing his scars when he clearly expressed to Bolt that he did not want them to be healed. Like that was messed up.
It's
It's
like
sad because
what
unlike yes, sir.
I was gonna say. It's like what the coterie does to Fitz when they heal him when he doesn't want them to heal him, and then he's
Mhm.
mad at them for like the rest of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like
Fitz holds a grudge,
Fitz,
and I feel like Wintrow does not.
Mm-hmm.
Fitz has like skill knowledge to like put some of it back the way it was before. Wintrow has like none of that, so he's just sort of stuck with it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because doesn't Fitz put his like arrow scar back or something?
He makes his nose broken again too, I think.
Like why though?
I think he's worried that
Wants to
people
look
like
rugged.
he puts like the visible ones back so that people won't worry about where they're gone. I think is what it is.
Oh,
Well, also I feel like when he's fully healed and like young, he looks like Chivalry's twin. So maybe having the broken
Oh.
nose and
So
having
people will
some
think
scars
he's like
on
a
his
weird
face, like
ghost.
it. Yeah.
That makes
Like
sense.
the Farseer resemblance will be too clear.
I love
Oh,
Fitz, but
sure.
sometimes I really do not understand what goes on in his head. Even though
Even
we're
though
in
he
there.
found all of the books in his head, I'm like, you don't make sense, man.
Yeah, I'm like, baby, that's not logical.
It is not there.
The person reading the book about my life being like, "Baby, what is you doing? That's not logical." Yeah. But yeah, Fitz is, and I think because we're reading it from his perspective, we're like, yeah, okay, and then you get to like other books, and then we're like, wait, no, not okay. That thing you did, like, get like all the like when we're in his head, like we kind of get what it's how he feels about like going off and being a hermit and like seeing patients or whatever, and then we get back to Gabe and it's like, Fitz, you were gone for like 20 years or like 15 years, and it's like, oh yeah, no, that makes less sense.
We're like, this is kind of bad. Are you okay, man? And he's like, I'm just gonna live in the woods with my dog forever.
Yep.
Now that my dog and my boy are gone, I'll just live in the woods alone forever. Don't worry about it.
My very last note for this chapter is something I realized about Kenneth, that I feel like whenever he feels threatened by Etta, he goes from thinking of her as like the woman and Etta to thinking of her as the whore, as if to like diminish her and like diminish the power that he feels she has over him in his head.
Yep.
And it's interesting that in this same chapter we have Etta sort of like admiring of Bolt in the way that she talks to her, and like I think there's like something like she had like a whore's frankness to her or something like that. Like she says of
Yeah,
Bolt,
she
that's really
did.
like. I wish that Bolt and Etta were like. Bolt wasn't like a manipulative asshole, because I think it would be really nice for Etta to have someone like Bolt in her life if Bolt was like actually genuine.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like Bolt would have helped her like realize her own self-worth and maybe have even helped her take some steps away from Kenneth or from like worshiping Kenneth to questioning him a little bit and like standing up for herself more.
Like we need, I want girl boss Bolt, but not gaslight Bolt.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I have 2 notes for this chapter. The first one is when it's like the serpents portion, they describe like they're getting memories and they're trying to figure out where they are, but where they are doesn't match their memories. And they're talking about this like hunk of dragon sculpture that was part of this Elderling city. And I was wondering if that is the dragon rock that Althea mentions in, I think, the last book.
One with the arrow through its eye?
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I think it's underwater where the serpents are seeing it, so I think there are just a couple.
Oh, I thought
Different
maybe it was
colors.
like sticking up out of the water or something.
Because I
I
kind
think
of
they
thought that
supposedly-
they were seeing it underneath because there was like an arch and stuff that they passed
Okay.
under the water too, and it was just like the whole city has sunk.
Yeah,
Okay.
because their whole thing was that like this is supposed to be above water, and we were like looking for it out, but it's like in front of us. What's going on with that?
I see. Okay. And then my other note is just that I find it to be very annoying that Kenneth himself knows that, like, he didn't heal Wintrow, Bolt did it, but he's still taking credit, like, not just in the crew, but, like, internally. He's like, I'm so amazing, I healed Wintrow all by myself. It's like, bitch, you know what really happened. So, just
there's so much emotion behind that bitch. Just you're so real for that.
Well, I feel like he thinks he did it because it was his hands that were the ones that Bolt guided. And he's like, it were my hands, so I did it, even though he's like not capable of doing any of this outside of like Bolt's help.
he is stupid and awful.
Yes.
Bolt also wants him to feel powerful
Never
because
not
when he's feeling powerful, he's a lot easier to manipulate than when he's paranoid and jumping at shadows.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, those are my only notes.
It's my last note. Something I probably should have mentioned all the way up top is I didn't realize that this is where we get Bolt's name. Like, because we've been calling her Bolt, so I'm like, yeah, Bolt. And she decides on her name here, and she's just been the dragon before.
I forgot about
I
that.
think it's
too.
really funny
Yeah.
because the way she like thinks about it, because she like takes a second, she's like, huh, what should you guys call me? I guess you can call me Bolt. And like she's trying to be like so threatening and cool, and it just has like big like, it's not a phase, Mom. My name
Yeah.
is gonna be Raven Darkness Dimension or Raven Way or whatever. Like, she's so edgy.
Yeah, I wish that she picked like a prettier sounding name because Bolt just sounds like it's just
It
boring.
reminds me of that Pixar movie of the dog named Bolt.
Oh my God, yes. I forgot about that. Yeah. She's a little fluffy white dog who saves the world.
Yep.
Honestly a pretty good metaphor because she's like she thinks she's hot shit, but in reality she's like in the grand scheme of
Nah.
things she's not that important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to chapter 12, Alliances. On Paragon, and everyone's depressed. That's the chapter.
Yeah.
We finally get Brashen breaking and admitting how he feels, and he even says that the love word.
I know.
I was very proud of him. I was like, oh my gosh, you're in touch with your emotions for once in your life, and you're actually like communicating them. It's refreshing.
Totally slipped out, and he was like, fuck it, like I can't take these back, so let me just lean into
Yep.
it. But I
Yep.
totally support. I was very happy.
I was excited.
I think it's
Also-
really nice because like both Althea and Brashen, they've had to sort of used to have lives where they lived like kind of freely, and now they've experienced some hardship, and they're sort of like now they're scared to let themselves have anything, and it's so nice for them to be like, we can have a little bit as a treat.
Mhm. Before all of that, like, I felt so bad for Brashen. I didn't realize how, like, bad he had it being the captain and being so isolated. And when he's, like, just pouring his poor little heart out to Paragon at the beginning. Like, Paragon is such a little shit for trying to make it worse. But, like, I feel bad for Paragon also being left in his isolation and stuff like that. I just felt so sad for all of our guys at the beginning of this chapter, and then finally, like, Brashen got a win. And he got the biggest fucking win.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But then it switches to Paragon, and I felt really bad for Paragon because Althea and Brashen start, like, boning, and Paragon literally thinks that sex, like, doesn't happen unless it's a punishment, and, like, it ends in shame and, like, pain and agony. And that's, like, extremely depressing. Like, it doesn't even occur to him that it could be, like, a consensual thing. He thinks that Brashen is doing that to Althea. And it's
to punish her. Yeah.
Like,
he's like, what did she do that was so bad that made him do this to her? Like, that is really sad.
Yeah, it's because the only thing that he's experienced probably is Egrot, like, being Kenneth. Probably.
Right, yeah.
It's like, yeah, like, Paragon is being, like, a real piece of work at the start of the chapter, but it's kind of, it's really, like, there's a moment where Paragon's, like, he hated it when his emotions changed up like this, and it's like, like, and, like, yeah, it sucks. Like, it doesn't change that you're still a dick in those moments, but, like...
Right.
Like, it's hard not to, like, get it with when you're in Paragon's perspective, because so much is happening.
Yeah.
Or so much has happened to him. Sorry, yeah. Like, yeah, I couldn't deal with Brashen being like... he has a line where he's basically like, yeah, I thought I would, like, lie down and die in your decks at one point. I thought that didn't sound so bad, and I'm like, oh, man, Brashen, dude.
Right.
Like, when he's talking about, like, I thought we could redeem each other, and I'm like, you guys are going to, just, like, give it some time. You're getting there.
Yeah. Also, I love how at the end of that, Paragon's like, yeah, I promise, like, I won't kill you. And Brashen's like, fuck, like, I didn't realize that was something that happened.
I didn't know that was on the table.
Yeah.
But then the way that Paragon starts thinking about it reminded me so much of Kenneth. So I don't know if he gets this from Kenneth or if they both got it and, like, learned from Egrot the way that, like, he acted towards people and stuff like that. But Paragon was like, why hadn't he realized that the first ones to kill were the ones closest to you, the ones who knew you best? It was the only way to eliminate the threat to yourself. What was the sense of killing a stranger? Strangers had small interest in hurting you. That was always done best by your own family and friends. And that's exactly how Kenneth feels, and that's why he keeps his mom freaking locked away on Key Island. And that's why he, like, doesn't give a shit about Etta.
I almost feel like they learned it from each other, right? Like, in the sense of, like, John and Kenneth hurt each other so much. Not even intentionally, because, like, I think it's sort of like Kenneth hurt Paragon by leaving, and Paragon hurt Kenneth by keeping him alive and taking his memories. It's sort of an interesting thing because, like, the person who like, drove both of them to those points is Egrot, a stranger, who hurt them both the most. But, like, feel each other's betrayal, quote unquote, so much more.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they probably also learned it. Oh.
No, go ahead.
I feel like they also learned it from like the way that Egrat was, because he killed Kenneth's dad, and he like mutilated Kenneth's mom. So like all of the people that Kenneth cared about in the past, Egrat like took them away from him.
Right.
And like that showed Kenneth that like it's not safe to care for people because they become a liability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I just think like the framing of it is weird. Like, what is the sense of killing a stranger? Strangers had small interest in hurting you, but Egrod was the one who hurt him. It's not like It's not like the strangers dying doesn't matter to him. It's the idea that like strangers don't know how to hurt you. So I think that it's yeah. That's what made me think that like the framing is sort of interesting because of how it like puts Egrod out of the picture in that sense, or like it doesn't remember
I feel
Egrod
like
in that.
Paragon's definitely thinking about Kenneth in that situation.
So there's a little interlude where we get Tintaglia going to used to be the Serpent Beach, finding like a beach serpent, realizing that all the serpents had like come here, but they couldn't continue because the water levels had changed, and so they just beached themselves and died.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit last chapter, but it's like I remember Tintaglia as being like the dragon in Nettle's dreams, who was like manipulative and cunning and all of that. And so I kind of just had that impression of her, but rereading the series really gave me an appreciation for like shit she's gone through and like the lengths, and it's sort of like it feels like I understand the lengths she goes to in Tawny Man as a result.
Yeah, she's very desperate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel bad for her the whole time in this. And I feel like when I first read it, when she was like dragging Rain around because he like forced her to search for Malta, and she was like being annoyed and like snippy with him and stuff like that, I think I got mad at her. But I feel like I'm going to be more annoyed with Rain this time around because I feel so much like empathy for Tintaglia.
Mm-hmm.
I have much else to say other than just like popping the biggest bottles for Althea and Brashen, basically.
Yeah, it's like finally.
I was very happy.
Honestly, it like the way that it happens also feels like almost like perfectly fan servicey in the sense of like I love like how just how angsty it is. It really does feel like almost like fan fictiony and like just like Hobb knows her audience and is like, yeah, they want this pining, they want this angst, they want this like yeah, it's really well written, like just like romance, and I think it's really nice because I feel like there's lots of like fantasy and like non-romance genres where it feels like the romance is just there as sort of like perfunctory. And like I really like that like Cobb juggles the romance in these series with the other elements and makes them still feel like juicy and fun.
Yep.
Yeah. And they feel real. Like if this was your two friends that you saw, like, and you knew there was a connection between them, you would like ship them in real life too.
Yep.
And celebrate when they finally got together and realized that they had feelings for each other.
Mm-hmm. I don't have anything else to say about this chapter. I don't know if y'all do.
No, I don't.
The last chapter for this section is chapter 13, Surviving. There's essentially two sections to this chapter. One in, I guess, outside of Bingtown, where we have Kefria and Selden arriving at Bingtown, or Kefria, Selden, Rain, Johnny arriving in Bingtown, and then Grag squirrels them away to the Tanira estate, where Ronica and three ships people are. And the other half is with Malta, who is still fighting to survive, as the chapter title says, on the Chalcedian ship.
I totally forgot that there was even a Malta part in this because all my notes were about frickin' like Ronica and them.
I have one note from the Malta part, and it's just that, like, this shows how much of a piece of shit Costco is, because Coochie's been with him for, like, forever.
I feel like we at least in death can we give her some respect? Can we not call her Coochie in just one moment? She's dead, guys.
Okay, what's her name? Kiki? Keki?
Yeah, something like that.
But like, she dies, and he's just like, ugh, what a nuisance. And Malta's like bleeding from a head wound, and he's like, rub my feet, you're disgusting.
Yeah.
Like,
He is so gross.
He's so awful.
Also, I didn't realize how much like Kiki probably was just putting on a show for the satrap. Like all of the ways that she like nudged Malta and was like, you need to say something now, you need to say something now. Like she didn't care about him at all. He was just like surviving.
She was doing what she needed to do to survive, and what happened to Cirilla did not happen to her, so she was like playing the game the way she needed to play it to protect herself.
And Cirilla, I feel like, was too...
She was too, like, hard-headed and prideful.
Yeah.
The way that he was talking about like, sexual assault with Malta, it kind of made it sound like she might have experienced it at some other time in the past. At least that was the impression I got.
Or she saw, like, what happened to Cirilla, and she saw... I'm sure that was the first, like, companion that he did that to. And so she was like, okay, like, I need to make sure that this doesn't happen to me.
I mean, even her having to sleep with the satrap to make sure that she doesn't get, like, violently assaulted by somebody else is still sexual assault.
Oh, definitely.
So she goes through it all the time.
It's just with someone she chooses to, like, allow him to assault her so that she doesn't have someone that she doesn't know is going to be, like, gentler.
Right.
Because satrap is weak, is basically what it comes down to. Like she's
trying to pick what
looking. Malta's like, there's something wrong with him. When she sees him naked, she's like, this is so gross.
Yeah.
It's just like it's a rock and a hard place, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, she's picking what she thinks is going to be the lesser of two evils.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like for the most part it is, but like, if she could see the way he reacted when she died, like, that's so messed up. He is like, I just can't believe that he was allowed to survive with all of the crappy things that he did and said.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those things where it's like, don't like Malta and Rain like dance at a ball at his palace or something? Everyone goes there. I feel like if I was Malta, I would not do that. I feel like I genuinely feel like that Cosgo's fate feels like bad writing to me, just because it feels like it doesn't align with the way that like other characters would feel towards him at the end of the day. I feel like the other characters would like want something bad to happen to him, like they would like I don't know.
Yeah,
like obviously, I would prefer like something happen to him just because like we want bad stuff to happen to bad people, but also I think that like in universe, everyone wants something bad to happen to him. So, like, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he gets, like, ever so slightly better because he doesn't have Malta executed when he's back in power. And he threatens that all the time. So, like...
baby step.
Yeah.
I think also maybe like Malta and Rain's connection to Tintaglia and them being like Elderlings and more dragons coming about puts him in his place more, and he realizes, okay, like I don't have the sole authority for all this. I'm not the strongest person in the world, so I can't act like a complete fool all the time. I can only act like a complete fool like half the time, more than half the time. And I feel like, especially after everything in Chalice had happened with like the dragons like tearing the city down, I think that that could have served as a warning to him too, to be like, shape it up or you're next.
Yeah.
Took a while to happen though.
Yeah.
It's like 20 years after this is Rain Wilds. I guess it can't be that long. It's like 2 years
Selden's a
probably.
teenager.
Hmm?
I think Selden's a teenager in Rain Wilds. I think he's like 9 here. And then
Yeah,
he's, I think, like 14 or 15 there.
I think
6 or
he's
7
older
years.
than that there, because I think he's probably about that old in Tawny Man.
Because he visits in Tawny Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's maybe in his like early 20s in Rain Wilds. Or like
So it's been like
late
10
teens.
years. Okay.
I could see him being like 17 to 19.
I think at the very, very beginning of Rain Wilds, he's probably like an early teen, but there's a time jump. Because there's several years that go by where the Rain Wilders are like feeding the baby dragons, and they're like, these are deformed and these need to get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
And then they like send them on to Kelsingra.
I forgot about that. I was just thinking, I always think of him as so young, especially when he gets kidnapped by the like people and held in that zoo. I just think of him as like just a child. Like I feel like he's like 12 then, and I feel so bad for him and want to protect him. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why my like perception of his age is skewed.
Speaking of Selden, I'm going to loop back around to his mama, Kefria. There's a line where at the very start of the chapter, she's thinking about Selden and thinking about all the children she's lost, and she's thinking not to love him too much. Like the others, he could be taken from her at any time. Which one, obviously super fucked up. But I thought it was interesting because it really reminded me of what Paragon was saying earlier, where it's like the people who, like what you're saying, right? Like the people who are closest to you, hurting you. And so it's like, don't form attachments. Thinking about that parallel just made me angry in general because I'm like, at this point, it kind of just feels like not great writing that Kefria hasn't changed. Not that I think that she needs to change, but I'm sort of like, I feel like either by this point she should have changed, or if she hasn't changed, there should be something like thematic being done with it rather than her just like being there. It feels sort of like, it feels like there was so much like built up with her in the first book, and then it just sort of like never goes anywhere. And I'm like, what is the point? Like obviously she's frustrating, but now I'm frustrated at you, Robin Hobb.
Well, I feel like
think not everybody changes and grows.
Yeah. Even in
I
real
think that's
life.
fine. Like I think that it's fine if she doesn't change, but I almost like, because with the other characters that don't change, I feel like Hobb generally like uses that to say something about like either like pairs them with other characters indirectly or directly, so that there's like a thematic thing going on. Like with Kefria, she just sort of like exists, and I'm like, what is the point of you then? Why are you here?
Well, that's why she writes her out and like forgets about her in Rain Wilds and just makes Malta and Althea siblings.
Yeah.
He's not
To the
important
point
anymore.
where in Tawny Man, she accidentally calls Malta Althea's sister.
Yep.
Well, and Malta names her son Fran after her father, Ephron, which is wrong.
Yes.
Ah!
Yep.
So Kefria doesn't exist, and Malta and Althea are siblings.
Yep.
I also noted down that section where Kefri is thinking like that because it irritated the crap out of me because Ronica went through the same stuff. Like, she lost her husband and she lost 2 of her kids, but she still, like, takes care of herself and she takes care of her whole freaking family and is a good, competent parent. And Kefri's like, oh, like, I can't even be a parent to the only kid I have left because, like, what if he dies too?
Right.
And we see also the way that Ronica, like, feels the grief when Kefri is like, oh yeah, Malta's dead. She feels it, but also doesn't let it stop her from doing stuff and, like, making changes and being determined to have a better Bingtown.
And there's like a moment where Freya's like, I just want to sit down here and wallow in despair until it goes away. And everyone wants me to do stuff. And it's like, I get it, but also come the fuck on, dude. Come on. Like, your own daughter, as soon as, like, Kyle was, like, taken, like, put, like, her big girl pants on, is like, okay, we're gonna change, and we're gonna make things right. Like, way over time for you to get there. And it made me so sad, because, like, I know, like Jared's like, oh, Kefri's gonna do a spy mission, it's gonna be great. And it's like, no, she doesn't do shit, dude.
She sucks from the beginning to the end.
Yep, she just continues to suck.
She has little moments of being good where you are like, oh, maybe she's changing, and then she doesn't. Like when she realized that Kyle was a dick. And then later on, I think in this, when she is, like, talking about, like, she, like, goes from thinking problematic things, like, she thinks, were Ronica and Johnny seriously considering sharing power with former slaves and fishermen? Like, you fucking suck thinking that. Yes, of course they're going to share power because that's how you unify Bingtown. She goes from that in this section to, like, offering ideas or being like, we have to unite, like, right now, today. But then she, like, still sucks after.
Yeah, there's a part where the 3 ships people are like, if we're gonna do this, like, if you need our help, you basically, like, you need to treat us like people. You need to include us in things. And then it just says, like, Kefria stared at him uncomprehending.
Yes, you stupid.
You literally
dummy.
can't.
No, it
even
doesn't she
comprehend
just yeah, he's
treating
like, we need
people.
some seats. Like, yeah, we need some seats on the council. And she's like, okay, you can have some seats on that council, but what if we made a different council for us? And
She's
then
like, we're still gonna have our own that runs the show, but, like, you can be on the council.
Yeah,
honestly,
she's really
it is a
stupid.
miracle that the 3 ships people didn't just like
Leave.
be like, yeah, leave. Like, that's insulting.
I'd be like, you can fend for yourself because you suck. I feel like they should have just killed her off. She should have done that cool spy mission and killed her off so that she could have died a hero instead of living a freaking fop.
Like, Hobb should have martyred her.
Yes.
Also, that also makes sense for why Selden and Malta just sort of go off and live elsewhere. It's like that you got
Yeah.
nothing you got nothing left at home for you.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, technically it's the same thing, like, with Kefria being alive, but, you know, still.
Like, it makes more sense that they don't visit home that often. Like, if
Yeah.
she's dead.
Yeah.
I guess maybe not more sense. It lets them do that while still being a little bit nicer. Not that I don't get it, but yeah.
I feel like I would be annoyed if they didn't visit home more if Kefria was dead because Ronica would be all by herself. And I'd be
Fair,
like, go
actually.
visit your grandmother. You don't know how long you have with her. I would shame those kids. I would definitely be like the Jewish mother, like, guilt tripping them into doing stuff.
I feel like I think Kefir dying would have been nice, but I also feel like there's so much that could be done with her. Like, I want her to reconcile with Althea. I want her to have to deal with Wintrow and stuff. I just think that, like, I almost feel like Kefria. I feel like realized that all the interesting things that she could do with Kefria, to some degree, involved needing the other Vestrats back at home. Realized that her writing style is to wrap everything up incredibly quickly, and she's like, I don't have time to do this. We'll put it till the next trilogy, and then that just never happens.
Yeah.
I think Althea deserves better than having to have Kefria in her life at all.
I agree.
Yeah.
I very much agree.
Like, if
But
my sister treated me like that, I would never talk to her again.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a horrible sister.
Mm-hmm.
She's a horrible sister. She's a horrible daughter. She's not a good mom. Like,
correct.
bye.
On all fronts. Yep.
She's a good wife, but that's only because she has, like, the world's, like, poster child for most horrible husband. So, like...
And because he only sees her once every, like, 6 months anyways. So she doesn't have time to be a bad wife.
Yep.
Maybe I'm adding that to the ever-growing list of fics that I have to write about this series at some point. Just Kefria fix it fic. Yeah. Well, yeah, fix it. Yeah, maybe we'll see.
Fix it one way or another, death or truth.
My last note was just like, the end of the chapter, I loved like the symbolic meaning of like Rain throwing back his veil. It's like it's on the nose, but it's really nice. It's like we are opening up with who we are. The Rain Wilders, hidden and mysterious no more. And it's like, I'm here for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because that veil's probably so uncomfortable and low-key suffocating because it's wet still. Like, he's having probably some difficulty getting oxygen to his brain.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that Bingtown unified so quickly. Like, it's happening so much faster than I thought. I was definitely expecting it to be like another 100 pages before everyone came together and was like, yeah, we have to do this to like save Bingtown.
I think Road Kern unintentionally united Bingtown because everyone was like, wow, this guy fucking sucks. We need to do something.
Yeah.
Interesting because like it's sort of like on one hand the Chalcedians are like an enemy that they all unified against, but there's just like there's so many different ideas of what fighting them means because of the implications it has for Bingtown's identity. Then meanwhile, Road Kern is super easy because it's just like, wow, fuck this guy, we need to just get him out of here, and nothing changes except things are better.
Yeah.
Is there anything else for this chapter?
I had just one note about, there was something that Ekke said that I really liked. That was, what a person has for a mind is more important than what is between their legs. And I don't really have any, like, notes as pertains to this story about that. I just think it's a really good line, and it's true to life.
Yeah. Well, and that's the line that, like, Greg backs her up on, I'm pretty sure. And that's what starts me shipping them. And I'm like, yes, they should be together.
Yeah.
I loved, like, another line she says during, like, the lead into that, which is this, I think it starts with someone being, like, something about, like, all men will be welcome and open. Ekke pops in with like, yeah, and all women too, and then he's like, it's just a manner of speaking, and then she's like, well, a manner of speaking becomes a manner of thinking.
I love that. Important.
I liked that too.
It's also, it was on my mind because yesterday I I forgot the timing for something, and I was like, I'm such an idiot, or like something, just like a throwaway thing, and my mom was like, you should stop doing that. And I'm like, I guess it doesn't like me. At first I was like, I guess it doesn't mean much, but also if it doesn't mean much, why do I have to say it that way? I can just be like, I made a mistake. And I'm like, okay, yeah that makes sense.
Yep.
We like positive self-talk here.
Yeah. All of our negative self-talk we express through shitting on Fitz.
Yeah. But he also shits on himself, so like I feel like it's okay if we do it just a little bit because we stick up for him so much more than he does.
Yeah. For sure.
I think it's okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, then thanks everyone for watching and or listening. We'll see you next week for chapters 14 through 18. I know how to count.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we have the chapter titles, we can give a little bit of a sneak peek, which will be covering chapters Town, Serpent Ship, Tintaglia's Bargain, Bingtown Negotiations, Loyalties. I'm especially excited for chapter 16 because I think that's when Tintaglia and Rain meet up and leave on their quest, which is a part I don't remember, but I really am here for like more Tintaglia Rain banter and then just like traveling. So yeah.
I actually flicked through all of these chapters because I was trying to find the next section where, like, we're back with, I think, Brashen and Althea. There was some group of people that I wanted to get back with, and I
Althea is
couldn't
definitely
remember.
that would be the Julia
Does it
thing.
happen
Just
now?
skipping forward to them.
Yeah. I was like, when does it happen? Like, is it going to be in this thing? And I think it's in the very last chapter. And I was like, wow.
Makes sense because like the chapter they get together is called Alliances, so it makes sense that they would show up again in the chapter called Loyalties. Very similar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.